What if your spouse's emotional disconnection after cheating doesn't actually mean they don't love you anymore? What if what you're witnessing is actually something far more complicated and far more common? You see, after infidelity, many couples become trapped in a painful cycle where one partner desperately pursues connection while the other completely emotionally shuts down. In this episode today, I'm going to unpack the surprising neuroscience behind emotional withdrawal after betrayal, what scripture says about shame and hiding, and I'm going to give you 3 practical steps you can begin taking today to reconnect emotionally after infidelity. So stay tuned. Hey beautiful, are you done with the pain, devastation, and overwhelm that marital betrayal has thrown at you? And you need a real roadmap to recovery, and you also desire to heal God's way? Well, you're in the right place. Hi, I'm Lisa, a betrayal trauma and infidelity recovery specialist who went from being crushed and humiliated by my own husband's affair to a global sought-after recovery specialist, helping Christian women and couples just like you heal and recover from the devastation of marital betrayal, all while doing it God's way. Are you ready to dive in? I know I am. So, grab your favorite latte, maybe a glass of wine, snuggle up with your favorite blanket on the couch, and let's focus on you right now. Let's do this, beautiful. Welcome back to the Beauty Beyond Betrayal podcast. This is the place where we help you heal after infidelity, pornography, and sexual betrayal through bringing you biblical truth, neuroscience, and practical restoration strategies. And today, I'm sure that some of you are devastated because you've just found out there's betrayal in your marriage. And you're probably asking yourself a very heartbreaking question. If my spouse says they're sorry, if they say they want this marriage, then why do they seem so emotionally disconnected? And maybe for you, you've even been journeying this healing from betrayal for months or maybe a few years, and you're still asking the same question. Now, maybe it's because they avoid deep conversations. Maybe they seem numb or they shut down when you cry. Maybe they become defensive, distracted, or emotionally unavailable. Well, if you're the one who's been betrayed, this can make it feel like a second betrayal. So today I want to unpack why emotional disconnection often happens after infidelity and what does Scripture say about emotional hiding. And of course, I want to look at what neuroscience reveals about trauma and shame. And most importantly, I'm going to give you some practical steps to take as a couple so you can begin emotionally reconnecting again. So let's dive in. And again, if you don't have your partner with you, then grab them. Listen to this together so it can help you in the conversation that needs to be had. Now, there is a question that no one expects after discovering betrayal. And it's one of the greatest misconceptions about healing after betrayal. And, this happens usually once the affair is exposed. Emotional connection should immediately begin returning. That's a misconception. And it's often the opposite that takes place. The betrayed spouse becomes more emotionally activated. And then on the other hand, the one who's unfaithful, well, they sometimes become more emotionally disconnected. One of you desperately needs connection while the other unconsciously withdraws. And this creates one of the most painful cycles in betrayal recovery. You as the one who's been betrayed, you think, well, you just don't care. And the unfaithful spouse thinks, well, nothing I ever do will be enough for you. And then you both become trapped. I'm sure you know the cycle, right? Well, let's look at this, and let's first start with Scripture. What Scripture shows us about emotional disconnection is something that we really need to take to heart. You see, the very first emotional disconnection in human history occurred after betrayal. In Genesis 3, after Adam and Eve sinned, what was their first response? Now think about it. They hid. Genesis 3:10 tells us, I was so afraid, so I hid. You see, shame caused an emotional withdrawal, and fear caused hiding. The disconnection became the natural response to broken trust. And this pattern, well, it still exists today. When people experience shame, fear, failure, exposure, the flesh instinctively moves toward hiding rather than connection. Now, this doesn't excuse betrayal, not by any means, but it helps explain why emotional withdrawal often follows exposure. Now, we see that in Scripture, but what about neuroscience? Yes, there is a neuroscience of emotional shutdown. Modern neuroscience confirms what Scripture has taught us for thousands of years. Researchers studying betrayal trauma, shame, and attachment injury, well, they have found that after infidelity, both of you often enter survival states. For the one who's been betrayed, your amygdala becomes hyperactivated. You start scanning everywhere for threats. You have hypervigilance that develops, and your emotional needs intensify because safety feels threatened. Now, for you, the one who's been unfaithful, shame networks activate. Your cortisol increases. Defense responses emerge. You become extremely defensive, and emotional numbing often occurs as well. And research from attachment and trauma studies demonstrates that shame frequently causes emotional withdrawal, causing the brain to interrupt vulnerability. It actually sees vulnerability as danger. It interprets it that way. In simple terms, you, the one who's been betrayed, you pursue connection because you're seeking so desperately to regain safety, while you, the one who was unfaithful, well, you're withdrawing to avoid pain and shame. And neither response is evil. Their response is due to survival. You're seeking to survive what has happened. But unfortunately, survival responses don't ever create intimacy. So why is it that your spouse may appear emotionally disconnected when there's been the discovery of betrayal? And I'm talking about the unfaithful spouse here. Well, there are several reasons for this. The first one is they're experiencing a shame overload. They're literally having shame speak to them, saying, I am bad. I ruined everything. I don't deserve love. It attacks their very identity. And when shame dominates the brain, emotional availability decreases dramatically. Rather than moving toward you, they often emotionally collapse inward because shame is the loudest voice in their head. Secondly, they never learned emotional regulation. Many who struggle with pornography, who have affairs, maybe the compulsive sexual behaviors, they never developed emotional awareness skills. Research continues to show that emotional avoidance and emotional immaturity are common factors in sexual betrayal behaviors. And when emotions become overwhelming, what happens? They simply shut down. They don't know how to emotionally regulate. Emotions either scare them or they feel bad and they don't know how to process and sit in them. And here's the third one. They're living in survival mode also. You see, many of you who have been betrayed, well, it's understandable that you believe that you're the only one who's experienced trauma. However, studies increasingly demonstrate that disclosure and exposure create significant psychological distress for the one who was unfaithful. Again, and this doesn't equal victimhood. They're not the victim here. But it does explain why both of you often become emotionally dysregulated after the discovery of marital infidelity. Now, the biggest mistake that most couples make is assuming emotional disconnection means a lack of love. Well, they just don't love me anymore. No, it doesn't always mean that. Sometimes emotional disconnection simply means my nervous system doesn't know how to be safe yet. That's really it. The one who withdraws often desperately wants connection, but yet lacks the capability to even sustain it. And the one pursuing connection, well, you often desperately need reassurance, but unintentionally, you overwhelm your spouse's nervous system. This is why healing after betrayal requires rebuilding emotional safety before you can even rebuild emotional intimacy. We have to have safety first. Now, let's take a moment to look at what Jesus modeled for us. Because one of the most beautiful examples of emotional reconnection occurs after Peter's betrayal of Jesus. You see, Jesus told Peter that he was going to deny him, not just once, not just twice, but 3 times. And yes, that's exactly what happened. Peter denied Christ 3 times. And what happened? He experienced overwhelming shame. Why do we know this? He withdrew. After the resurrection, Jesus didn't come to shame Peter further. No, he invited him back into relationship. You see, in John 21, Jesus actually comes to Peter and he asks him 3 times, "Do you love me?" Now, he didn't do this, because Jesus needed an answer. No, it was because Peter needed the opportunity to reconnect emotionally with him. Healing happened through safety, truth, and repeated connection. And that's how it still happens today. Healing happens when there is safety, truth, and repeated connection. So today, I want to give you a few ways to begin engaging emotionally since you have found out about the marital infidelity. Because you have to have emotional connection in order to start having a real relationship again. And first, we want to start with emotional honesty, not emotional intensity, okay? Honesty. Many couples jump immediately into deep processing conversations. I want to know all the details. Give me everything I'm asking for. Let's have, 4-hour deep marathon sessions to go deep into processing all of this and uncovering why this happened. That's a mistake. Instead, what you need to do is begin with simple emotional language. Practice asking questions like, well, what emotion did you feel most today? What felt difficult for you today? What helped you feel safe today? And what do you need from me tonight? You see, emotional intimacy isn't rebuilt through dramatic, long drawn-out conversations. No, it's rebuilt through consistent emotional honesty. That's where you begin. All right, here's number 2. Create short daily connection rituals. I help couples with this day in and day out inside of our marriage redesign program. Research on attachment repair consistently shows that frequency matters more than intensity. Just spending 10 minutes daily connected with phones off, having eye contact, no problem solving, no discussing logistics, just simply connecting emotionally can benefit you tremendously. And one question that you can ask, what was your emotional experience today? You see, small moments of connection literally begin rewiring your attachment pathways in the brain. That's where you need to begin. Short, little daily connection rituals. 10 minutes max. It can go a long way. And here's number 3. Replace defense with curiosity. You see, when your spouse withdraws emotionally, resist assuming their motive. I mean, we are quick to jump into assumptions. That's not healthy, and that could really blow up in your face. So instead, ask some questions. Help me understand what you're feeling right now. What just happened inside of you? What do you need to feel safer right now? You see, asking these questions, you're showing that you are curious, and curiosity lowers threat responses. On the other hand, defensiveness, now that increases them. And we're looking to go in the opposite direction. James 1:19 reminds us, everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. Remember, emotional safety grows where curiosity is practiced. So if your spouse seems emotionally disconnected since you found out about the marital infidelity, it does not automatically mean that reconciliation is impossible. It's out of reach. It does not necessarily mean that they don't love you. It often means both of your nervous systems are still trying to survive something devastating. And the goal isn't forcing emotional connection. No, the goal is creating enough safety that emotional connection actually becomes possible again. You see, healing rarely happens in one dramatic breakthrough. It happens through thousands of small moments where you've had safety, honesty, empathy, and of course, grace. Now, if you are walking through this devastating aftermath of infidelity, maybe there's been the pornography discovery or sexual betrayal, I've created a brand new resource specifically for couples called After the Discovery. It's a 5-step emergency healing guide for couples who are facing betrayal. And inside the guide, I walk you through what to do immediately after discovery, how betrayal impacts the brain and the body, your first steps to create safety, how to stop making the mistakes that delay your healing. And I'm giving you practical steps to begin rebuilding trust. And you can actually download your free copy by going to the link in the show notes below where it says After the Discovery. Click on it, and then you can download it. Go through it together. It gives you something tangible to work on. And I want to thank you for joining me on today's episode of Beauty Beyond Betrayal. Remember, your spouse's emotional disconnection may be a symptom of injury, not necessarily an absence of love. Your healing is possible. Trust can be rebuilt, and the connection that you're seeking, it can return. And with God, what feels broken beyond repair can become something entirely new. And speaking about new, continue to listen and continue to watch, because we've got some things behind the scenes going on, and we've got a little shift here at Beauty Beyond Betrayal, and you need to stay tuned so you can, through the next month, hear what's going on and experience it with us. Until next time, remember, you're not alone, and there is hope beyond betrayal. Be blessed. Thanks for stopping by and spending a little time with me today. I hope you enjoyed today's show and you found hope, healing, and encouragement. Please remember to subscribe to my podcast and leave a review. You can even screenshot this episode. You can share it out on Facebook and IG stories. This is how we get the message of hope and healing out to all women and couples who are in need of restoration after betrayal. And if you're ready to move out of that devastation and take the next step in your healing journey, well, make sure to reach out. Schedule your coaching session today. Until next time, love God, live your life passionately, and always choose joy in the midst of any circumstance that you may face. Cheers to you, beautiful.